season. I think everyone would agree. In the end, I think the last games didn't really matter too much. The only thing that really had anything riding on it was the Champions League place between Chelsea or battle, I guess, between Chelsea and Tottenham. But in the end, that was never really even that close, was it? So it ended up being I would say, a kind of like a procession, or a more like friendlies than like an actual competitive last week. Obviously, teams wanted to end on a win, that's without a doubt, but it did seem like there weren't that many teams who were really going hell for leather, shall we say, in the final week. So we ended up on 59 points. There was an average of 49. Not great. Mostly due to the fact that a lot of my players just didn't play. So, for example, De Gea didn't play, Otamendi didn't play, Walker didn't play. I mean, you can't really account for that if they're not injured, So, I didn't know they weren't going to play, so there you go. So that's basically like three, good players there lost. But we had some good performances from some other players, and then more. Oh, go away, Java. No one likes you. We had some good performances from, three players, but then the rest of it was all just a bit disappointing, really. Zaha, I guess, doing well as my captain. I just had this feeling he was going to score on what could well be his last game for Crystal Palace. I thought we would beat West Brom fairly comfortably. I guess we did, but I thought it might have been by a bit more than 2 goals, but a win's a win, isn't it? And overall for the season, we ended up with 654,000, with 2,072 points. Which I'm actually happy with. I kind of said all along that I wanted to get below 1 million. Then once I did that, I was focusing on under 500,000. But maybe next season that's a focus. Get on in the top 500,000 and then see where we go. I'm pretty sure there probably is not many points difference between me and the people who are under 500,000. Probably maybe 50 points, if that. So, over the course of the season, that is totally doable. I'm not looking to be the number one or anything like that, but totally doable. So yeah, in the end, in terms of results, decent win for Bournemouth. It actually pushed them above Crystal Palace, I think, in the end in the league. Oh no, sorry, we beat them on goal difference. But in the end, decent season for them. I think they've got to be happy with mid-table. I guess a bit disappointing for Burnley, but they couldn't. There was not a huge amount to play for other than pride, I guess, for them, because they were cemented where they were. Palace winning 2-0. Interestingly, that was John Motson's final commentary game. He is a legendary British broadcaster who has done sports commentating for well before I was born, and done it very, very well. Always felt like he was, he was one of those commentators, I think, who you just felt at home with. There wasn't that kind of I don't know, sometimes I feel like modern commentators, or especially maybe commentators in other countries, when I listen to their commentary and stuff like that, it always feels a bit too polished and smooth, and with Motson, he was very, very good at it, don't get me wrong, but it always felt a bit more home comfort, instead of being a sharp, like a James Bond suited and booted. He was more just sitting in a cardy in front of a warm fire type of commentary. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I felt like. I always enjoyed it, and obviously a very, very intelligent and knowledgeable person about any of the sports that he covered. So he will be missed, but I hope he enjoys his retirement. And I guess as a Palace fan, it's kind of an honour that his last game was at Selhurst Park, and we managed to win. Goals there from obviously Wilf Zaha and Patrick Van Arnold. Arnold getting the assist as well. Patrick Van Arnold, I think, it has been one of the most improved players for us this season. I think I spoke about it last time that we only brought him because of what happened to Papa Suarez, who was in a car accident and broke his thigh bone, which is like a horrendous injury for a footballer, and was out for like a year. And so obviously we needed a left back. In came Patrick Van Arnold. I think it was Sunderland we got him from, and he's done brilliantly, and his link-up play with Wilf is really good. I would imagine he's going to still be at the club next season, but he may have to link up with a new player. But anyway, Arsenal won against Huddersfield. I think I am going to do a video just talking about Arsene Wenger and his legacy at Arsenal and that type of stuff, because I think it is interesting, and for a lot of people, they maybe only know the last 10 years of his career and don't know what happened in that first 12 years where he actually did pretty well. But I mean, to have like a 22-year career as a football manager is, as I said, something we're not going to see again. I think Alex Ferguson had 24. I think Wenger's got 22. But the football world is so cutthroat now. Fans are so quick to want the manager out that I don't think we'll ever see a football manager get anywhere near that long a reign ever again. Basically, even you look at something like Leicester winning the league with Claudio Ranieri, a feat which people couldn't have dreamed of in their wildest dreams, and then literally the next season they fire him. There is nothing, unless you perform every single season and win everything every single season, you are going to get fired. It's a horrible job, I think, nowadays, football management. There's just no kind of belief or just everything's such a short-term game, and the problem is that for a lot of these clubs in the league, firing a manager and bringing in a new one often saves the season. Crystal Palace, prime example. But then there are other clubs where it just doesn't. But, I guess you never know, really, what's going to happen. So Arsenal, good to see them winning. Liverpool with a pretty routine 4-0 warm-up win against Brighton. I think is it next weekend they've got the Champions League final? Possibly. They're looking good. Salah got to 32 goals in the season. We'll have a look at that in a bit, but that's a phenomenal achievement. I mean, I think people are taking it a bit for granted, just how good that is. I mean, that is a record. He's done that in his first full season, really, in the Premier League, as a first team player, and he's done that as a winger. We've not seen that since Cristiano Ronaldo, and even he didn't score 32 goals. So yeah, a phenomenal achievement, and I don't think he even takes penalties either, does he? So, really, really, really phenomenal. That will go down in history, that season. I guess now he's just got to cement that at the Champions League final, and then that will be probably, that will have him in Liverpool, history for, decades to come, I guess. Man United 1-0 against Watford kind of sums up their season, really. Just we'll talk more about Man United, but they are just a frustrating club this season. But they're frustrating so much as their points total is actually pretty good for the season. They're second in the league. it just feels like that team is, I don't know, like the team should be so much better, but at the same time it plays so badly. So it's an enigma. Newcastle with a fantastic 3-0 win against Chelsea. I don't. It's going to be the FA Cup final between Chelsea and Man United next week, and I cannot see Chelsea winning it personally because, on the one hand, they both had disappointing seasons. They both have teams which are not really firing, but I feel like Man United are committed to Mourinho, whereas Chelsea are nowhere near committed to Conte, and we all see what happens at Chelsea when they're not committed to their manager. Like, the players just give up, and if you think about it, Chelsea had something to play for. Like, if they win that game and Tottenham potentially lose to Leicester, they could have snuck into that European Championship place. So to lose 3-0 to a newly promoted side who was already safe and didn't have a lot to play for is really sums up their season, I think. And again, like, frustrating because talk about manager longevity. Antonio Conte won the league last season. You know, he was hailed as a genius. This season, Chelsea fans can't wait to get rid of him. I don't understand where, like, what happens. You know, I don't. I mean, I feel very sorry for Antonio Conte. I like him as a manager. He seems to come across as a very honest and passionate person. I think he's a very good manager. I don't know why anyone would dispute that. He's won the league in Italy many times. He's won the league in England. He's built, Juventus kind of back up, and he's clearly a very, very good manager. And I kind of feel like to just trying to go, get Conte out, it's rubbish. It's not Conte. It's Chelsea. Like, there is like problems there. People, I think, used to kind of talk about the kind of John Terry. Oh, was John Terry too big in the dressing room? Perhaps he was, but there's clearly others, I think, who are problems there. Like, I think the biggest problem comes down to the owner and the fact that he is just clearly not backing the manager. I think if he backed the manager, Chelsea would do a lot better this season, and I think he is to blame because they haven't backed him in the transfer market. They haven't backed him publicly, and I would totally imagine that they've nowhere near backed him privately at the club. And I feel sorry for Conte. Like, that is Chelsea though, all over. They use a manager and then they sling him out. That's their style. That's their methods. They'll get somebody else in for next season. I think they're talking about Sarri from Napoli. They'll get him in. Maybe they'll do well in the league. Maybe they'll even win it, and then he'll probably be gone the season after. It's that perpetual merry-go-round, and I think until they change ownership, shall we say, that will continue to happen. So strap in, Chelsea fans, because I don't see that you're going to have any sort of stability anytime soon. On the plus side, I guess they're still, most of the time anyway, finishing around the top half of the table. They could still win the FA Cup. So maybe all is not lost, but yeah, it's pretty. The last time they weren't in like a major European competition, they won the league. So who knows? Man City beat Southampton 1-0. That got them to 100 points, which is incredible. They've had just an incredible season. Without doubt, worthy winners, without a shadow of a doubt. Probably the most dominant performance in the Premier League I have ever seen, in a style which was absolutely fantastic to watch. Playing some amazing players, playing some amazing football, scoring some amazing goals, scoring the most goals in the league by a long way, keeping them, conceding the least goals in the Premier League. Like, anybody who thinks that Pep Guardiola is not a good manager is I said before, is just an idiot. Like, you've only got to look over at Man United. They've got very good players there, and I bet any money that if Man City and Man United swapped managers, Man City would have won the league, without a doubt. But as it is, Man City have got Pep Guardiola. The thoughts of them, I guess, is to look forward to next season. I'll talk about that a bit later, but without a doubt, worthy winners. I guess the Champions League probably put a little bit of a damper on it, but a cup competition is incredibly difficult to win. It needs a lot of luck, in all honesty. As much as anything else, a league is more about true form. I think over 38 games, you can afford to have a little bit of, to not have the luck in a couple of games, or to turn up in one game and perhaps not play quite to your limit. But in a cup competition, a knockout cup competition, you have to be on it every single game. You cannot afford any slip-ups, and they had a slip-up twice. And clearly Liverpool, have the players and the ability to have a go at Man City, and if it probably wasn't for Liverpool's very slow and sluggish start in the league, they probably would have challenged Man City, so that would be fascinating for next season, I think. Swansea Stoke, massively disappointing, I guess, for Swansea fans getting relegated. We all knew it would have been probably an impossible task for them to have stayed up. They would have had to have won that game 9-0, with Southampton losing 1-0. But to not even win it, I think, kind of sums up Swansea's season. They're a side who desperately need to win and score goals, and they're playing against a Stoke side that's already relegated, and they lose 2-1. I mean, no one can argue that Swansea don't deserve to go down. They do. They were very poor at the beginning of the season. They had a bit of a pick-up in form when Carlos Carvalhal came in, but I think his inexperience showed in the last 5 or 6 games, where the thing about a manager, that the mark of a manager is not only his ability to create a winning side, but it's when that side is going through tough times to rally the troops, to bring them back, to push forward, and he clearly couldn't do that. Well, for whatever reason, don't get me wrong, I don't think Swansea are a particularly great football team, but I don't see them as much worse than Southampton, Stoke, or West Brom, or Huddersfield even. So the difference is that I think the really good motivators and managers can pick a team up and get them working, and I think his inexperience in the Premier League cost them in the end after a very good start. It's not his fault they get relegated, don't get me wrong. It's just a combination of factors, but we'll see, I guess. I guess Swansea fans were also, it was a bad week for them because Cardiff got promoted to the Premier League. Swansea and Cardiff are big rivals. I never quite understand that because they're both Welsh teams, but going up against English teams every week, and you think they'd kind of unite together in that, but instead they just constantly fight with each other, which I kind of find funny, but there you go. Spurs in the thriller of the week, 5-4 against Leicester. Spurs needing to win, I guess, to make sure that they qualify for the Champions League. I think they finished third in the end as well, didn't they? Yeah, they actually finished third above Liverpool in the end, so quite comfortable. And yeah, clearly like a absolute thriller of a match. I haven't got around to watching it yet, but imagine that was our first match of the day, for sure. Kane getting a couple of goals, taking his tally to the season to 30. People talking about Salah, but Kane hitting 30 again in the season, showing that he is the dominant striker in the Premier League. And I would imagine we're going to see some big bids coming for him this season from the top clubs in the world. And I'm wondering if Spurs can resist that any longer. I guess Leicester at least scoring a few goals could be Mahrez's last ever match for Leicester. I think Vardy will probably stay, but I would imagine that Mahrez will probably move on. Where to, I don't know. We'll see, I guess. And West Ham getting a 3-1 win against Everton. Both teams who I guess are very disappointed with their seasons for different reasons. West Ham putting out a little bit of form at the end just to secure their safety, I guess, getting 7 points in the last 3 games. Otherwise, they would have been right down in that dogfight, but without doubt they would have had higher hopes for this season than what they had. Now, obviously, Salah got the most goals, 32 for the season, followed by Harry Kane on 30, then Aguero, Vardy, Sterling there with 18 Premier League goals, more than Lukaku, more than Lacazette. That's pretty phenomenal. Assist-wise, Kevin De Bruyne, then Sane, Silva, Raheem. I mean, that shows everything you want to know about Man City there. Top 4 assisters in the league, all in double figures there. Phenomenal. And by the way, Mohamed Salah, 5th on that list with 10 assists and 32 goals. That is just, in Liverpool fans' wildest dreams. They could not have expected a season like that from Mohamed Salah. Weird that Granit Xhaka got the most passes. But other than that, dominated by Man City players, as you could imagine. And don't get me wrong, there's rotation going on with these players as well, so they're not playing every single game, I guess. The interesting thing I think here is that in terms of saves, obviously the lesser clubs have got the most saves because they face the most action, but David De Gea, number 5, but also the best clean sheets, without a doubt. Cannot underestimate the effect David De Gea has had on Man United season. I think Man United would have been a lot lower if David De Gea was not in that team. A lot lower. So, yeah, a lot to think about there, I guess. And yeah, I guess that's kind of about it. An interesting season. Also, just out of interest, this was my first game week number 1 team. We had De Gea in goal as we did all season. We had Keane in defence, Cahill, Walker holding. Walker kind of stayed, I guess. Mane, I guess that was a good pick. Ali, Redmond, bad pick. Sandro, bad pick. Again, a Firmino. So I guess a fair few changed. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them were mainstays, I guess, in the side, and then the others kind of changed. And I worked out that if I'd kept this team the whole season and never changed it, we would have got about 1,200 points, and we actually ended up on just over 2,000 points. So I was worried that it would be a case of if I just kept that team and didn't change anything, it would have ended up on more points, which would have been hilarious. But we didn't, so that's fine. So if we kind of, I guess, go through and just do a quick review, I guess, on each of the team season and how they did. Starting, I guess, at the top in Man City, they will obviously should be very, very happy. That goal difference is phenomenal. That's got to be a record as well. Lost 2 games in the season. That weird 4-3 to 4-3 I think to Man United, and of course the Liverpool game as well. Drew 4, but ended up on 100 points, which is a record. Absolutely phenomenal team. Going forward now, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if Sergio Aguero moves on at the end of the season. I could see him perhaps going back to Atletico Madrid. I don't think he's too happy with the rotation he's getting. He scored 21 goals in the season, which is good, but I think he probably wants to be a bit more of a number, proper striker, and I don't think Guardiola has that much faith in him. I think he prefers Jesus, but I would imagine that Man City will strengthen the side again this season. I generally don't know who. I would say they probably need I mean, I was going to say a defender, but they brought the port in the January transfer window. I mean, they're fine on their wing backs. Their midfield is pretty chock-a-block with talent. You know, I guess that maybe they're just going to bring in, you know, like a top player to just try and improve. I mean, Pep Guardiola is a kind of perfectionist. He will constantly try to improve, and sometimes that has been his downfall. But you know, clearly a phenomenal season, and again, those people who doubt Pep Guardiola, I imagine it's probably born out of jealousy, to be honest, because the guy is a phenomenal manager. You can turn around and say about how much money he spent till the cows come home, because Man United spent a lot of money, Chelsea spend a lot of money, Liverpool spend a lot of money, and I don't think that if you gave any of those top 6 teams another 100 million to spend, that they would have got anywhere near Man City's total. And when you look at players like Sterling, who, you know, people were almost writing off in the beginning of the season. He was supposed to be in a swap deal with Arsenal, remember, with Sanchez. Well, he looks world class now. Leroy Sané, like, people were bigging him up and saying like, this guy's a really good player, but he looks world class now. Same with Kevin De Bruyne. Obviously was playing well at Wolfsburg, but I didn't see Man United, Tottenham, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich going in for him. I saw Man City going in for him, and then now he looks like probably the best midfielder in the world. So yeah, you know, any manager who can make like Fabian Delph look like a fantastic left back is, or wing back, left wing back is, in my mind, pretty darn good. You know, he has a way he wants to play. He has a clear philosophy. It's entertaining, so the fans like it. It scores goals. I think the players obviously really love playing that way, and they win things now. They won the league. They've dominated. 19 points ahead of Man United. That is a phenomenal gap. And Man United got 81 points, which is not a bad total, you know. So yeah, you know, as I said, going forward, I mean, I genuinely believe that if Man City don't even buy a single player for next season, they would still win the league. I mean, I just think this team they've got is just that good, and they've had injuries and they've managed to bring in other players, but undoubtedly they will probably bring in 1 or 2 players, I would imagine. You never know what's going to happen, I guess. So, you know, A+ for them, for their season, definitely. Manchester United, I said before, Man United frustrate me because they look like they have a brilliant side on paper. They have a lot of attacking talent. Lukaku, Rashford, Martial, Mata, Pogba, Sanchez. Like, going forward, they look great, and they've ended up scoring only 68 goals. You know, conceded only 28, a goal difference of 40. They've lost 7 games in the season, which I'm sure Jose Mourinho will be annoyed about, but I think one of the problems with Man United has been that Man City had such a good season, so it's just put this magnifying glass over them, because they spent a lot of money as well. You know, they broke a transfer record, mine Pogba. You know, they got that striker that they wanted in Lukaku. They've got young players coming through, and you know, they just haven't really kind of gelled. And as I said, I think without De Gea, they probably would have ended up 4th or worse. In all honesty, I think De Gea made that much difference for them this season, and they've got a lot of rebuilding to do, I think, at the end of the season, or just a lot of figuring out what players they want, because Jose Mourinho is just so good at like burning bridges with his players. That's one thing you don't see Pep Guardiola do, is come out after a game and just slag off one of his players. Don't get me wrong, they usually don't play that badly, but you know, Jose Mourinho's treatment of like Luke Shaw, I think, just shows that the guy is, I I can't even imagine why you would want to do that. Like, in what way is a player going to react well to that? I mean, you can want him at the club all you want, but you got to have a little bit of professionalism in what you do. So I think I've always been a big fan of Jose Mourinho. I've always felt like he was a bit harshly criticised sometimes, but certainly I think in the last couple of seasons I've lost a lot of respect for him, because just the way he seems to treat his players. It's one thing to turn around and I guess privately think that your players are a bit crap or not working hard enough or overweight or whatever. It's a whole other thing to just turn around and say that to reporters, you know. So I don't know where Man United go next season. I think they're going. I'm pretty 90% certain Mourinho's going to be manager there next season. I think they'll probably spend heavily again in the summer. They certainly need a defence, like central defence in particular, and probably to sort out. I think they just need to have a sort out of how they want to play. You know, this whole Mata Pogba business in the middle of the park seems to be an issue for them. They don't seem to know. They just seem to have a collection of players without a team. That's the difference I feel between City and United. Is United have got this collection of fantastic players that they're trying to fit into a team. Think about it as like FIFA 18 Ultimate Team. You know, you're doing the draft or whatever, and you're just picking all the best players. You know, you're picking Messi, Ronaldo, you know, De Bruyne, you know, Lewandowski, and then you go and try and fit them all in a team. You're like, oh shit, I've ended up with like 3 left wingers, or none of these players complement each other in any way. Whereas with Man City, it's like, okay, we're going to get this player, and then we're going to, because he fits into our system, you know, and we want to go and get him, that player particularly, not, oh, so-and-so's available, oh, we should just buy him, like Sanchez in January. It's like, no rhyme or reason to what they're trying to build, and they just need, I think, to have a plan. Mourinho, when he was at his most successful, you know, I think at Chelsea, he had that spine of his team. You know, he had like Drogba, Lampard, Terry, Cech, you know, and they had, you know, they knew what they were doing, and then he could like chop and change some players around them, but he had that spine, and he doesn't have that at Man United. You know, he's got Lukaku and De Gea, but he's missing, and he's got, I guess, Pogba that he wants, but I don't know if that's the right player. And then he hasn't got that central defensive linchpin. You know, the spine is not complete, and it's flexing. And they're just like buying big players because they're big players instead of thinking about how the team's going to play. And I don't know if Mourinho has a plan of what he wants and how he wants the team to play, or, you know, if it's Man United not getting the right players, if it's a recruitment issue. I don't know what it is, but clearly there's problems there, and they've got to address them. So I mean, I can't be too harsh on Man United. They finished second, 81 points is a good amount. They could win the FA Cup. You know, their season looks worse because of how well City did, so I'd give them a B, probably. Tottenham Hotspurs are a weird team as well, because clearly they don't have the financial power of the teams they're competing against. Like, they just don't, do they? They finished third. That's a really good achievement. But you now worry if Tottenham are going to turn into a bit of an Arsenal. They're building their new stadium. It's going to cost a lot of money, and they have some juicy targets in their team that bigger clubs will want. Ali, Kane, Eriksen, you know, Verdonken, Alderweireld. These are juicy players who, you know, the big clubs will want, and they know that Tottenham are going to be in a financially precarious position because, you know, they won't be able to spend big, and they know that those players are not on top wages. You know, they're not on the 250,000 a week that, you know, a Sanchez is probably on, or, you know, more that like a Messi or Ronaldo's on. So they know that there's an opportunity there to poach those players. So Tottenham are going to have a tough summer, I think. I think they'll be very happy that the transfer window actually finishes in August, like mid-August this year rather than the end of August, because I think if Spurs get through to the end of that transfer window and they have all those players players still left, then that will be successful. Never mind if they've brought anyone, because it's going to be tough. I mean, I think it's important they keep Pochettino. Clearly he's building something there. I think people have overrated Spurs a bit. I don't think they're going to challenge for the title again next season. I don't think they're going to challenge in the Champions League. I think they need to win something, whether it's the League Cup, the FA Cup, whatever. They need to win something, and yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, if they can keep those players, the Kanes, Alli's, Ericssons, you know, to when they move into that stadium, then, you know, they've got a chance. But if they do the Arsenal route, where, you know, they put all their money into the stadium and then fell so behind against the other teams who were spending, then, you know, I feel like they could go back to finishing 7th or 8th, you know, rather than cementing a top 4 position. I think they've had a good season. I don't think Spurs fans will be disappointed. I think they'll be disappointed that they came close in the FA Cup and then didn't manage to you know, follow through in that. So I'd give them a B for the season. I think they did okay. And then I guess Liverpool, it's another weird season because they finished 4th. But you'd have to argue in 2018 Liverpool have been the standout side, possibly even in the world. They have played some remarkable football. Those 12 draws though, that's what's cost them, and that came, you know, towards the beginning of the season, where they had that very dodgy defence. They were leaking goals. Perhaps Salah took a few games to get going, and they had a really slow start. Virgil van Dijk seems to have made a big improvement in their defence, sorting out the goalkeeper situation again. It seems to have made a big improvement. Karius now seems to be number 1. Whatever your opinion is of whether or not he's good enough to be an elite goalkeeper, he has been much improved since he's been getting a longer run in the side, so that's decent. And from a league point of view, I don't think people would be too disappointed. They finished in the top 4. That's good. They clearly are on, you know, form, and I think next season they're going to be the biggest rivals to Man City, because, you know, if they can keep, and there's no guarantee they're going to keep Salah, but if they can keep him, Mane, Firmino, maybe bring in you know, a central midfield backup, maybe another you know, backup for that front 3, so they can actually get some rotation going or cover injuries, because clearly Ings and Solanke are not good enough. But if they can get that going, then I think they can seriously you know, challenge for the title next season. I think they've got a psychological advantage over City, having beaten them 3 times this season. So yeah, I think that would be big for them, you know, including the European Cup in their season. It has been an A+ season. Like, win or lose, getting to the Champions League final is a phenomenal achievement. No one would have expected that. You know, after probably 10 games of the season, they've been phenomenal in the knockout stages, beating some big teams, and yeah, I really hope they go on and win it. I really think they deserve it. Real Madrid are a tough side though. On paper, you know, form-wise, Madrid have not been very good this season, but there's something about them in the Champions League, and maybe with Zidane as well, that they're just like, they are up for those big games, and that's going to be a seriously tough game against a team which hasn't won anything, and a team which is used to winning, you know, and is used to coming from behind as well. So it's going to be a tough game. People are saying that, oh, Liverpool are the favourites. I would disagree with that severely. Real Madrid's record in that competition is pretty much second to none, and you know, they have some very big game players: Ronaldo, Bale, Ramos, Benzema, Modric. You know, they have some big game players, so Liverpool will need to be at their best for that game, but I really hope they can do it. So I mean, it's difficult. For the first half of the season, I'd give Liverpool a C. For the second half, I'd give them an A. So I guess overall, in the league, a B. If you include the Champions League as well, then like an A without a doubt. But a good season, I guess, for them. And I think out of all of those teams, other than Man City, Liverpool fans are probably the most optimistic out of any other club in the league, because they've got a lot to look forward to, I think. Naby Keita, by the way, is going to be coming to them next season. They brought him a while ago, but the agreement was he wasn't coming to the end of the season. He could shore up that midfield well as well. He's played well in the Bundesliga, so they've already confirmed a target that they wanted. And I think they have done the same as City in that they've identified players which are going to fit into their style, fit into their team, and that has been the focus for them, rather than just going out there and buying big star players and going, oh, if we just put you all in a team, you're going to play well. That's the Real Madrid approach, and it might work for them, but it's not really a viable option. Chelsea, I mean, it's got to be a disappointment. They won the league last season. Conte, the recruitment just didn't seem right for them. Conte's a very abrasive character, and I feel like if he doesn't feel like he's got the backing of the board, the fans, the players, then he kind of goes into a bit of a tortoise shell. He goes in a little bit on the defensive. He becomes very prickly, and I think without a doubt he's lost the dressing room and the board and the club and the fans, which is sad to see. They had a chance to push that last game and potentially squeak in a European place. They ended up losing to Stoke. Sorry, Stoke. Who'd they lose to? They lost to Newcastle, sorry. Who are way below them in the league, and in terms of buying power, way below them, and also in terms of form. Newcastle lost their last 4 games before that. So, going forward, I mean, they're clearly going to get rid of Conte. That's going to shock no one. Maybe he can go out on a bang and get that FA Cup, win. I feel like Man United are going to come through and win that. But you never know. A piece of brilliance from Hazard, could be the difference. Looking at them purely in the league, I'd give them probably a D. I mean, finishing 5th outside the top, 4 when you were in the top 4 for most of the season, is poor. And certainly, they were no slouches in the transfer market. I don't feel like they brought particularly good players, but they did spend some money. They did spend some money again in January. Giroud, I think, was actually a good buy. They got Morata at the beginning of the season, who kind of got to a flying start, but perhaps from there, just for whatever reason, it just didn't really work out as well. So yeah, and they'll have some rebuilding to do next season without a doubt, but that's generally the way they work. So we'll see, I guess. But I mean, yeah, no Champions League is going to suck for them, I guess, in terms of trying to recruit, especially a manager. So yeah, I'd give them a D. Arsenal, I mean, what can you say about Arsenal? I think their season has been overshadowed by the fact that Arsene Wenger is finally leaving, after it's been kind of like pushed for the last few seasons, especially from the fans' point of view in the media. Without doubt, he's had a fantastic effect on the club, and his legacy will be remembered, forever in the history of Arsenal. But if you're looking at just this season, again, Arsenal very, very disappointing. Until their win on the final day against Huddersfield, they had not picked up a single point away, or a single win, I think it was actually, sorry, away from home in 2018, which is absolutely shocking. They have some good players. They lost Sanchez halfway through the season, obviously, but he was gone from the beginning of the season, let's face it. Ozil stayed. I feel like, in a way, Ozil stayed because he was like, I can get paid like 300,000 a week here, be the whereas if I went to a top club, I'd actually have to probably do something, and I feel like he's not a good player. I've always said that, but also I don't rate him. I think he's technically very good. Like, he can clearly, pass. He's very good, like, on the ball. But as an actual all-round footballer, I don't rate him at all. So, but I will say that Aubameyang has had a fantastic effect on them. They've looked a lot better with him in the side, and maybe if he wasn't cup tied, maybe we'd be talking about them in a European final and not Atletico Madrid. And I think what's exciting for Arsenal fans is going forward next season, Lacazette and Aubameyang up front could be really, really interesting. We don't know who the manager's going to be next season for them. It's going to be very, very weird to see another manager come in. There's all sorts of talk about different managers. For me, they need to get in an experienced manager with a clear view on how they're going to play and a rebuilding programme, rather than turning around and going, we just want to get somebody who's going to play in the style of Arsene Wenger or that kind of thing, because I feel like they just need to do something different. Like, they need to refresh, So when they're talking about like Mikel Arteta or Thierry Henry, like, I don't think either of them have experience in any way, shape or form to do that job. I think they need a top manager. I'd actually go for Carlo Ancelotti personally. I think just as a kind of like a couple of year stability program, he's a guy who he's not like, he's very good. He's well loved by fans. He generally has his team playing pretty well. He clearly can win things. He has won things. He's sort of got a lot of experience, and he comes across as a likeable guy, I think, which is important. And he knows how to work with demanding boards and stuff like that. So I think he would be a good choice for them for a couple of seasons, 2 or 3 seasons. Well, maybe they could then bring in like an Arteta as his assistant or Henry as his assistant, and then look towards that as the future. I don't think they'll do that. They'll probably make some terrible decisions, because that's usually what Arsenal Football Club do. But hey, there we go. They need to rebuild their squad next season. Like, the goalkeeper, in my opinion, Cech now is not capable of playing at the highest level, like the level required of a top 4 team in the Premier League. Their defence is shocking. Their midfield, I mean, this is not a lot going on, is there, at Arsenal? There's no steel, there's no spine to that team. And like, they need to have that. They have very good attacking players now. But yeah, they just don't have that fight. So maybe like a new manager can kind of bring that in. I'd love to have seen Simeone go there, just to shake it up. Just to see Ozil's face when Simeone walked in on that first training session would have been hilarious, but it won't happen. So I'd give them a D for the season as well, because it's just, they've not won anything. They've finished 6th. There was a worry at some point that Burnley might even have overtaken them. Just pretty bad, really. Speaking of Burnley, finished 7th, playing the way they play. You can see they only scored 36 goals. They've got a -3 goal difference. 54 points, really good total for them. They're a side who are going to go into Europe next season, and they have a tiny budget. They're not a big club. So it's a tremendous achievement. A for them, without a doubt, in my mind. The worry for me is now the expectation levels going up for Burnley. Like, what happens next season if there's a couple of injuries and then they're hovering around the relegation zone for the first 10 weeks or so? Do the fans get restless? Is there cause for Sean Dyche out because they finished 7th last season? Or is there some sort of calm and going, well, some sort of rational sense? I know rational sense and the average football fan doesn't really coexist, but I feel like, is there that, is it going to be that sense? If that happens, it might not. There set up to play well in Europe. You know, they're very solid and compact. That usually does pretty well in a cup competition. So we'll see. A for me, tailed off at the last 5 games or so. Obviously, I think their players were at their head, elsewhere, and they could potentially have put a lot more pressure on Arsenal for that 6th place. But I'm sure they will be delighted with 7th. If you'd have said to me at the beginning of the season, Burnley are going to finish 7th, I would have been like, I would not have picked them to finish in the top half, let alone a European place. So fantastic achievement for them. Everton. In some ways, I guess it's a disappointing season. They spent a lot of money. They had high hopes for Koeman. They ended up replacing with Sam Allardyce. There seems to be a lot of malcontent with the fans around Allardyce and what he does and the style of play he plays. But my question is this, like, where in reality did Everton fans see their team finishing? For me, it was 7th. I couldn't see them breaking into that top 6. Potentially, you could argue that with Arsenal's form, they could potentially, if they'd have played to their best this season, pipped Arsenal, but they wouldn't have gotten near the top 5, I don't think. So the question is, like, how disappointing a season is it really to finish 8th? I think what's more disappointing is that it's kind of similar to Crystal Palace in a way, is that they were looking at Koeman, they invested in players, they wanted to play this kind of like expansive football, just look good and build up and invest in players, and look to try and crack that top 6, and then it completely unravelled when they were in the in the relegation dogfight. And obviously they brought in a specialist in Sam Allardyce, who I think would be totally capable of bringing Everton into that 6th or 7th place potentially next season, but they just don't want him. That's clear, because they don't like the way he plays. So you have to be careful what you wish for, I would say, Everton fans. As a Palace fan, Sam Allardyce saved us. I think he's a good manager. I've spoken about this before. He's just a bit of a cock, and I think that doesn't go down well. And while I think he did a fantastic job at Crystal Palace, I'm not disappointed he's not Crystal Palace manager anymore. I'm not disappointed that he's not, as in, I'm happy he's not Crystal Palace manager anymore, but I do appreciate what he did for us when he was there, and I do think he's a good manager. It's just that he has a very high opinion of himself, shall we say, and he's quite an abrasive character in that way. So next season, Everton, I would be surprised if Allardyce is there. I kind of hope he's given a chance next season. I think he deserves it. I think, whatever you think of the guy, I think he deserves it. The Rooney situation, I think, is that Rooney's going to go. They need to bring in, I don't know what they need, really. They need to sort out what they're going to do and what they want to aim for. They're quite capable of breaking into 7th and upwards. Well, 7th and potentially. I mean, it might be hard next season if Arsenal bring in a top manager to break into that top 6. Chelsea are probably going to bring in a manager, but they should be aiming for 7th at least, shall we say, next season. So we'll see. I'd give them a C for the season, because I think they had a bad start. They've recovered. They're not playing great football, but they're 8th in the league, and reality is that they probably would have had a focus of 7th in the league and a good cup run. So they've not done terribly, have they? Leicester, again, changing manager halfway through the season. From an expectation level of Leicester fans, I think 9th is exactly where they should be. I'd give them a B and say, yeah, you've done fine. Obviously they had a bad start as well. Got rid of their manager, brought in Claude Puel, who, again, people have to be careful what they wish for. Southampton were comfortable with Claude Puel, got rid of him, nearly got relegated. Leicester nearly got relegated, brought in Claude Puel, easy mid-table finish. Next season, I wouldn't be surprised if they sack him, bring in someone else, end up right back down there. Clearly Leicester have a good side this season. I don't think it's going to be a better side next season, because I think Morris is going to go. But they do still have some very good players. I think if they can use that Morris money they're going to get and buy in some more players, they're capable of breaking into, again, like Everton, into that kind of 7th position, which I think from a Leicester fan point of view, like, take away that freak season when you won the league, like, expectation levels. If someone said to you, hey, when you're in the Premier League, when you got promoted, like 3 seasons, you're going to be finishing like top half, I think they'd be delighted with that. So, the expectation levels got raised, kind of rightly so, for when they won the league. But that was such a freak season for so many reasons, and I've got a video talking about that, which is going to come out at some point once I actually edit it. But yeah, clearly just a freak of a season. So I'd give them like a B, probably. I think they've done fine. Newcastle, without a doubt, A+. Who would have said Newcastle are going to finish 10th? They have a championship squad. They have 1 or 2 Premier League players, that's it. Rafa Benitez is a miracle worker. 44 points, they'll be delighted with that. Just tailed away a little bit towards the end of the season. You see those 4 losses. Got a win on the final day of the season. Lost 18, drew 8, won 12. Like, that's a brilliant statistic, and for me, Rafa Benitez, like, top 5 manager of the season without doubt. I really hope they get in some new owners and can invest, because I'd love to see him push on with Newcastle. They're a fantastic club, they have fantastic fans, and that area of the country really deserves some sort of success, because life can be pretty grim those guys, the Geordies, they live for their football, and I really hope they can deliver on it, and I hope Benitez stays, because surely some top clubs could be looked to poaching him. Like, surely he's a top class manager without doubt. So yeah, A+ season. They clearly need to strengthen, like, in all departments, but a great season. Crystal Palace, my team. It's a weird one, because if you just said to me at the beginning of the season, would you take 11th with 44 points? I would have said yes, absolutely. And I look at this table and I go, we were 10 points off a European place. We didn't get a single point in our first 7 games. If Roy Hodgson had been there from the beginning of the season, we probably would have got to Europe. I don't think that's a stretch of the imagination. Or, sorry, I'll rephrase that. If Will Zaha didn't get injured at the beginning of the season, we probably would have made it into Europe potentially. Although maybe De Boer wouldn't have got sacked, because we would. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like people, like with Crystal Palace, I feel like out of the top from 8th downwards, so from Everton downwards, I think Palace are the team which, certainly in the last sort of like 10 games, have had the best form. And I think I saw a stat which was, if you took the Premier League table from 2018, so from the beginning of the calendar year, Crystal Palace were 5th in form, in points. And that says it all, really. A season of 2 halves. First half, clearly mistakes were made, bringing in De Boer, and I don't think it was really all his fault, but it was a combination of Zaha getting injured, him not having the players to play the way he wanted, which I guess was his fault for not trying to adjust to that, but also the board's fault for not backing him. The big major signing was Sacco, who was injured when we signed him. He's only really kind of come back into form, I would think, in the last quarter of this season. So it was never going to work out with De Boer. Hodgson came in, did a fantastic job, without a doubt. He got 44 points and he had a 7-match handicap. You might as well say played 31 there for Crystal Palace. If you think about, if on average, if I work this out, if we got 44 points from 31 games, so that's an average of 1.4 points per game. So if you give us 7 times 1.4, gives us another 9.8 points, so another 10 points. So you could argue we could get into Europe with that. All I've wanted is for Crystal Palace to play in Europe. It's never happened, and it would be my dream. And I think this season is disappointing as a Palace fan, but in another way, I'm ecstatic because we're in the Premier League for next season. Our team looks really good. We're playing nice football. We have a couple of problems. One of them is Christian Benteke. I think I looked in the Premier League club statistics, and under player stats, was it? Where is it? Big chances missed. Look at that. Christian Benteke, 20, second highest chances missed. And when you consider that Kane and Salah are going to have a lot more chances than him, like, that says it all for Christian Benteke, I'm afraid. I love the guy. Like, I was a big fan of Christian Benteke, but this season has been awful, and I don't know if he can recover. I don't think the club could take a chance on him recovering. His confidence just seems absolutely shot to pieces, you know, and this was a World Cup year for him. You know, he should have been flying. I just don't think he does enough for that team. I don't think he plays in the way that Roy wants to. Palace are all about pace, and he does not have a lot of it. So I don't think he's going to be a Crystal Palace player next season, personally. I think he'd do well at a club like Burnley or someone like that. But, you know, I don't think he's going to be a Crystal Palace player next season, which saddens me because I'm a big fan of his. But that's the way it goes. He's just not right for the team, I guess. I don't know how much money we'd get for him. We paid like 27 million. I don't know if we'd even get half that back, but that's the way it goes, the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, you know. As for the big one, which is Wilf Zaha, clearly, in my opinion, outside of the top six, so from Burnley downwards, with the possible exception of Mahrez, although he's not had a fantastic season to his level, I think Wilf Zaha is the best player out of the rest of those teams there. He's a phenomenal talent. He changes games on his own. He just brings so much to the Crystal Palace team because they play so much for him. I really hope he doesn't go. Like, so much hope that he stays, because I feel like we can push on next season. I just can't see it happening, unfortunately. I can't see there not being a bid for him from a Tottenham or potentially even like a Liverpool. Like, I think he'd do so well at Liverpool. I almost would love to see that, but I just can't see him staying, and it hurts so bad. But hey, the one advantage I'd say is, like, look, if we get a lot of money for him, which we will do because he's on a long contract, then we can afford to replace him, and hopefully replace him well. We can afford to buy a striker, and we could afford to buy a goalkeeper. So, I don't know. We'll see. To give Palace, I'd give them a B, because I think at the end, as I said at the beginning of the season, if you'd said to me we're going to finish 11th, we're going to play entertaining football, we're going to have a really good run, you know, we're going to play very well up against the big sides, Wolves going to have a fantastic season, I'd have said that's all I want as a Crystal Palace fan. You know, to not have to worry about relegation in the final few games, which I didn't. That's all I want as a Palace fan, so I'm happy. I'm very happy. But going forward next season, I don't know. I think if we keep Wilf, our expectation levels probably got to be like 7th or 8th, and then take it from there. I think we've got such a solid foundation, though. We need a goalkeeper. Like, no offence to Wayne Hennessy, but he's not Premier League quality. Our two centre backs, Tompkins and Sacco, are really good. Patrick Van Aanholt's playing, you know, so brilliantly. Right back is kind of interesting. We might need a new right back. We have a young player, Bissoko, I think it is, who's come in and played a few games, has done very well. I think it was him. I can't remember offhand. So that might be an option. And then if we can keep Wilf and Townsend, you know, in central midfield, MacArthur and Milicevic have done brilliantly, and then just a striker as well. Easy, right? And then we would actually probably as it always will be, what do we do if we don't have Wilf? So yeah, we'll see from there. Bournemouth, I'd say for Bournemouth, it's like a B. Like, this is exactly where Bournemouth should be, mid-table. And I count mid-table, by the way, from about 8th to about 14th, really. That's sort of mid-table-y. If you don't really have to worry about relegation in the last couple of games, you're mid-table, basically, this season. So yeah, Bournemouth, where they are. Eddie Howe, on a shoestring budget, absolute shoestring budget, another fantastic job. I had them tipped to go down at the beginning of the season, and yeah, they put it around. The sign of a club who stick with a manager, have a clear philosophy, don't have a lot of money to spend, and by the way, they've bought some players who have not really worked out. Jordan Ibe it's not really worked out for them very well, and they've got some decisions to make next season on how they're going to push up, because you know, all the other teams around them are going to be pushing upwards and onwards, and you know, the promoted teams are going to be pushing up, and it's fascinating that this season we saw the 3 promoted teams stay up. I don't know the last time that happened. You know, and established Premier League teams went down. So yeah, they've got to push on. West Ham United. I realise this is a really long video. It's kind of purposely so though, but there you go. West Ham, I feel I've got a I don't know about West Ham. I feel like they're a club who should be in the top half, but there's so many issues off the field that I don't even know where to start with them. Like, there's just so much going on there, on a boardroom level, on a fan level. I don't think their team's that good. Like, on paper, I think it's better than what they are, and they on paper they shouldn't be going down, but you know, David Moyes is not exactly my choice as manager. I'm not a fan of his. I've said that before. I'd give them like a C minus probably. Like, they're not getting relegated. They're 9 points away from that, but like, obviously got to be a disappointing season. I think most of their fans would have been expected to be probably where Everton or Leicester are. So yeah, maybe a D then. I guess they did spend some money. Just the players they brought were a bit tripe. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they go next season. Watford, you don't really hear much about Watford, do you, really, anymore? They've had some good players this season. I could see Decor going to a much bigger club. Maybe even Richarlison as well. Although his form dipped badly towards the latter stage of the season. I think they've got to be happy that they're not relegated. They kind of, like, they were never in the relegation zone. They kind of hovered around near there. I don't really know. The thing about Watford is I don't really know what they want. Like, they obviously want to be an established Premier League side, but I see them. I don't know. Like, they're very choppy and changey with their managers. Like, and yeah, we'll see. I guess again, I'd give them like I think for I guess I'd give them like about the same at West Ham, like a D. Like, they should be higher than where they are, but they've really, like, a couple of wins and they would have been a lot higher. So it's kind of harsh to give them maybe like a D, but I feel like they've got worse this season than they were last season, so that's why I'd give them a D. Brighton Hove Albion, really good season for them. Again, not exactly a big club, promoted club coming into the Premier League. Chris Hughton's done a fantastic job with them. I'd give them a B. Same with Huddersfield. I guess you got to give them an A actually, just for staying up, haven't you? Huddersfield especially, because their budget was tiny. I think Brighton have spent a bit of money. They've brought in some players for like 10 million odd, I think. So I'd give them maybe like an A minus on that one, because I think out of all 3 of the teams, Brighton was the ones I expected to stay up, because they did invest a little bit more, and because they've got Glenn Murray and he's awesome. But Pascal Gross has been a phenomenal player for Brighton this season. Really, really good. No one really saw that coming. So yeah, I'd give them like an A minus, and Huddersfield an A, Newcastle an A. Newcastle probably like an A plus, because they were well out of it. But yeah, those 2 teams, Brighton and Huddersfield, phenomenal seasons to stay in the Premier League without a doubt. absolutely phenomenal. Huddersfield Crystal Palace a lot because they won that first game 3-0 against us. I think that set them off to a little bit of a good run to begin with, and then they faltered a lot. Like, if you remember, they were right up in the top half of the season for like the first 5 games, and they faltered badly. So I think next season they've got to invest, because their form has been very poor in this second half of the season, and they really came close to going down. Like, they had to really pull out of the bag a couple of draws there to stop them. Now, as it was, that wouldn't have mattered. If they'd have lost those games, they would have still stayed up. But maybe it would have given Swansea a bit more of an emphasis to actually bother to turn up, and maybe West Brom could have done something. I don't know, but they've got to invest next season without a doubt. They've got to keep hold of David Wagner, because I think he might be on a few clubs' radars, and they've got to invest big time. Southampton, people slag off Mark Hughes all the time. I don't think Mark Hughes is a particularly good manager. I don't think he's a bad manager. I think he's very uncharismatic. I think he blames referees way too much. He comes across as just an incredibly grouchy person who I would not want to spend any time with. He might well be the nicest person in the world, by the way, but he just comes across like that. I think Southampton, with or without Hughes, would have been safe, personally. I think they were good enough, and they should never have been near there. They get D for the season without doubt. They should never have been near the relegation zone. With the players they've got, they're going to stick with Hughes next season, I would imagine. Hughes usually does well in his first season or season and a half at a club, so I'd imagine they're going to push for mid-table next season. Probably spend a bit of cash, but I don't see Hughes as a long-term manager there for them. Swansea, yeah, they get a D, I guess. Just as I said, they played badly under Paul Clement at the beginning of the season, but Carlos Carvalho came in. They had that initial form. People were like, oh my god, he's performed a great escape. And I said all along, Swansea are not out of this at all in any way. And that form in the last 5 games, you got to think 1 win or win and a draw, and they're staying up. And they could not do it. Even on the last day of the season against relegated Stoke, they lost. That is so poor. Unbelievably poor. Yeah, they deserve to go down. They've not played well, apart from maybe 5 games of the season. So I don't know where they go when they go down. I don't know how many players are going to stay on. They've got some good players, I guess, but there's just not a lot going on there for me. It's without doubt a D. A D being, I guess, the lowest mark. Same with Stoke. Stoke's squad on paper is actually really good. It says it all though when they're playing 36-year-old Peter Crouch up front. It's just what the hell happened to recruitment there? They've wasted their money on players who are not good enough. Celio, Berahino, Kevin Vimmer, Giovanni Imbrula, I think it is, the midfielder. That's 30 to 40 million pounds they spent on those players at least. Where are they? They're not near the squad. Even their players, Dan Butler and Charlie Adam came out and said some players at that club have been coasting, and it's poor. That's why you get relegated in the Premier League. You cannot afford to waste that money. I don't know if that was Hughes' fault or the board's fault. I'd imagine a combination of both. But they've got some rebuilding to do next season. Clearly they're going to lose a few players. Shaqiri, Butland, a few others probably will go. I feel like they had the best squad out of that bottom 3. It's really, really poor that they've gone down. I feel like they're the biggest squad, or the biggest team, sorry, out of that bottom 3. And a lot of people don't like Stoke because of the Pulis days, I guess. They were seen as this aggressive, nasty playing side who didn't play attractive I never minded Stoke. I always liked that. I liked the fact that there was a team who played differently, who, you know, made it difficult for you to play and stuff like that. Were a challenge. And I loved it when they beat those top teams. So I'm sad to see Stoke go down, but they weren't the same Stoke this season that they have been. Again, very poor decisions. I feel sorry for the fans because they're not the ones who make those decisions on transfers. Crystal Palace brought Benteke for 27 million. Didn't work out, but we had some good games out of him at least. I don't even know what happened to some of those players at Stoke. It's just shocking. Leeching money out of the club that fans are putting into the club. It's shocking, really. And West Brom, who rallied at the end, Darren Moore doing a fantastic job taking over from Pardew. It says, although if you have 3 different managers over the course of a season, you're going down because, the Pardew appointment was incorrect without a doubt. I'm not I'm not an Alan Pardew super fan, but I don't think he's as bad a manager as a lot of people make out. I just think he was completely the wrong manager for West Brom. Completely the wrong manager. They needed to not sack Tony Pulis for a start. I think that was a mistake. But they needed somebody a lot more solid than Pardew is. And yeah, they paid for it big time. What could have been though, I mean, clearly they would never have just appointed Darren Moore when they got rid of Pulis. But if they had, they probably would have stayed up. And West Brom are a nice club as well. They've been held as an example of how to run a club in recent years, but they screwed up big time. It's funny that Swansea and West Brom have both been kind of examples of how you run a club. Swansea when they had like Gary Monk there. West Brom, in the past they've had like Hodgson and managers like that who have done well with them, and they haven't spent beyond their means, and they kind of stayed up. And then suddenly this season they got into that panic mode of like, oh my god, we might go down, we can't do this, sack the manager, bring in this other guy. Oh no, it's all going wrong. Buy players who just don't work out in any way, shape or form. For West Brom, I guess it was Sturridge. It wasn't a bad buy because I guess they had to take a chance. Sturridge is a top striker when he gets going, but it's that injury problem with him. He just didn't play, So in that terms, it was a bad buy. So it was a bad buy. For Swansea, I think it was like the Ayew brothers. They're just not worked out there, I don't think at all. But yeah, so again a D for West Brom. I feel sorry for all of the teams who go down. I've experienced relegation as a fan many times with Crystal Palace, and it's horrible, And the Championship is a harder competition this next season than it ever will be. There are so many teams battling, and you can see with a team like Sunderland that if you don't get it right when you go in that league, you can't just expect to walk in that league and go from as a relegated Premier League team and go, we're going to be in the top 6 at least, easy, because you will get chewed up and spat out, and it is a rough league. In some ways, it's more competitive than the Premier League. I think in the Premier League, you really only have to worry about picking up 40 points. In the Championship, like, it's rough. You're playing against hard teams every single week, so yeah, we'll see what happens with them next season. Relegation and promotion, I guess they make it interesting, don't they? But it's hard, especially when the relegation costs so much money. It can just destroy clubs. There's obviously the parachute payments, things like that, but like clubs who get relegated are rarely the same again. Look at Newcastle. I mean, they used to be a high-flying Premier League club. They got relegated. They came back up, but they come back up as a team who, we're saying getting 10th is like an A plus performance for them, and it is, you know. And how many teams that have been relegated, you know, can push back up in the league? Just none. It just doesn't happen, because it rips the club apart. You know, it takes years to build up in the Premier League, and in one bad season, a few bad decisions, you know, from the board of your club, and it gets all taken away. So it's a hard life, but hey, football, it's just the way it goes. Going forward, I'm going to do a few videos on the World Cup. I'm going to be looking forward to that, and then obviously getting back into the season. I don't know if I'm going to do this sort of video next season. I have to see how I feel about it, but we'll see. I think it's quite popular with people, so we'll see. But this has been a long one, so thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this season. It's been great. I have, you know, and I'll see you in the not too distant future. Goodbye.